Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another Live at the Waterhole session on this fine Sunday. I hope everyone's doing well. It's me, myself, Kenneth Gamble. I'll be your guide for the session. It's quite a rainy day throughout southern Africa today, but we're starting off in overcast El Doño. Certainly not too much rain there, but it's looking incredibly green at the moment. Please remember to reach out on the different social media links, etc. Send through your questions and comments, and let's keep the show live and interactive as always. The water is looking quite low here at the El Doño waterhole. I imagine there's maybe a maintenance issue, or maybe they are doing some maintenance currently on the waterhole. I think there's a little bit of water. Obviously the giraffes are still trying to drink from it a little bit, but certainly the lowest I've seen it in my time of paying attention to the El Doño waterhole. The bush is really coming to life here at El Doño. We can see a lot of green new growth sprouting on the ground. So safe to say the rains are in full swing, that's for sure. Penelope, I am safe and dry, but it is quite rainy. But I think everyone in the Lowveld, or most nature lovers throughout southern Africa, are rejoicing for this wonderful downpour of rain. It's not too hard, it's just nice and continuous, wetting the soil evenly, and I'm certainly excited to see everything come to life a bit. Mr. Elemental, glad to hear you're having some sunny weather there in Australia. The way it was getting dry this side, I certainly would not trade this rainy weather for anything. Yesterday was quite warm though, but there's certainly a level of gratitude knowing the rains were on their way. It was getting a bit dry here, and things weren't looking too great. So now I feel like a little boy on Christmas at the prospect this morning of waking up to see all the wet weather blessing us. It's quite funny that the giraffes are hanging around this empty waterhole here at El Doño. Don't think there's much for them to really sip on, but nonetheless, I'm sure there's also a few puddles out in the bush, depending on how plentiful the rains have been, but it looks very vibrant. Anyway, we're going to leave our giraffes here and head over to Founders. We've got one of our resident rhinos here at Founders, giving his horn and forehead there a bit of a nice scratch on the rock. I must say these rhinos certainly live in a bit of a spa resort here at Mantis. They've got quite a nice swimming pool, and they've got a great couple of scratching posts that they've got at their disposal. And I think a rhino is at its happiest if it's got food, mud, and somewhere to scratch itself. And obviously trying to get maybe a few parasites off that have been irritating him. Super Mongoose mentioning there's been a lot of rain in the Gauteng province, or the interior highveld of South Africa. That is good news for that part of the bush. Now, it is just simply fantastic when it's not December yet, but when the rains start properly and the African bush just comes to life. It's certainly just stunning to watch the system restart and everything start to regrow and a new life. I saw Lenny was also mentioning that when the waterhole at Oldonyo is empty, they tend to truck water in. It's interesting to know. I was under the impression that water was pumped there, but I'm sure there's a reason why it's quite low at the moment. It does happen from time to time that some of these man-made waterholes develop leaks, and they do need to be repaired or maintained a bit. The animals do put a lot of pressure on them when they're gathering around the whole time. Our rhino is definitely working in a very good scratching session on this rock. It's quite interesting to see how he's scratched his smaller horn almost a bit white there. Of course, it's normal. It's just generally coated in dust and mud and all kinds of other soil particles. He's not rubbing it hard or hurting himself in any way. It's always a privilege to see a rhino with its horns intact. With a lot of anti-poaching tactics nowadays, almost all rhinos you see tend to be dehorned as a deterrent for poachers to rather leave them alone in the reserves if there's nothing to poach in the first place. Quite a sad circumstance, but a very necessary one for saving the lives of rhinos. And quite a bit of research has been done. It's been shown rhinos that are dehorned reduce poaching incidents in different reserves. Obviously, some reserves prefer to leave their rhinos with their horns, and they just ramp up on their anti-poaching activities. But I guess when it comes to saving these magnificent animals, the more you can do, the better. I see Wendy says it's not raining in the Eastern Cape area too much, but I'm sure your guys' rain is also around the corner. Certainly once there's almost a countrywide rain shower that we're receiving, I think it's a good sign that the weather systems have well and truly changed, and we will head into the nice wet season like we're meant to. Allegedly, we're meant to have a very wet cycle this year in Southern Africa, so fingers crossed, but I was a bit skeptical at one point, but it's sounding or looking more realistic after today. And there was a question from Friso Mudao. You'd like to know what's the difference between a white and a black rhino. Always a very popular question that often comes up. Your white rhinos are much larger than your black rhinos, almost double the size, so your black rhinos are just under a ton, and white rhinos are almost about 2 tons. So size-wise, your white rhino is just bigger, and they've got a square-lipped mouth or lips, which is specialized for grazing. Also, you look a bit at their neck structure, they're built for keeping their neck or their mouth quite low to the ground, whereas your black rhino has a hook-lipped, it's a hook-lipped, for grasping and browsing on thorny shrubs and trees. And those are your 2 key differences. It'll be down to size and the shape of those lips. Your white rhinos also tend to be a lot less shy, whereas black rhinos are very shy, so you don't often get a good glimpse of them. They tend to run away quite quickly. Confiding animals. So you've got the ever-present Egyptian geese. I wonder how big their chicks are. I think it's been a week since I last had a gander at them. This rhino bull is really getting a good scratch on his horn and face there. Obviously something was irritating him a bit there, but I think he's really enjoying that little scratch. I see we've got quite a few viewers all over the show, from Zim and Italy, even Namibia, quite a few different spots. We're just going to pop over to Lentor and leave our runner to keep scratching himself. I'll answer a few more questions after that. Ah, there we go. We've got a nice baboon troop here at Lentor, and for once we've managed to catch them before they slip off, so I think we'll actually be able to enjoy their antics quite a bit. James Hotham, you'd like to know what morning drink do I have as we all sit and chill on the Sunday? Definitely a coffee. Normally a bit of fruit juice or water if it's hot, but now today it's quite rainy and cool, so I'm enjoying a nice black cup of coffee. I'm not fond of milk in my coffee, so it's always great for my bush adventures. We never have to worry about bringing milk with or it going off, so it has its benefits. I'm not sure what everyone else prefers to sip on when they're watching the show. Well, I think I jinxed that one. I thought our baboons would stick around a bit longer, but yeah, I shouldn't have said that. Anyway, we're going to go over to the hide and see what's going on there. I'm sure there's quite a bit of action. Well, we just have to look and find some birds, I'm sure. There's got to be some action taking place here at the hide. There was a question that came in from Matthias from Namibia, saying you want to know between rhino and elephant, which one is heavier or has more weight. So we were discussing with the black and the white rhino, and the white rhino weighs roughly about 2 tons or so. So your elephants are about double that. Your elephants are closer to, you're speaking on averages, but at least roughly around 4,000 kilograms or 4 tons. Obviously, I'm just giving a bit of an average because males and females are quite different in their respective sizes. But yeah, an elephant is much larger than a rhino. And when it ever comes to any territorial aggression or aggression between the two, an elephant will always come out on top. But it is quite rare. It's not actually very normal to ever really see the two really interacting or being aggressive to one another. I see we've got a few egrets there. Plenty of storks again. It's all our abdom storks and marabou storks. I'm still waiting with bated breath to catch a glimpse of my first abdom stork for the season this year, but I'm sure they're on their way. You can see how the numbers are picking up quite a bit here at the hide. Obviously, as they're all congregating on their travels, they are such pretty storks. And the cattle egrets are also looking quite bright there. Their beaks almost take on a very bright orange, or almost it goes from yellow to a very bright orange, which is their breeding plumage. It's actually interesting to note all your herons during the breeding season, their beak and facial skin changes color a bit and takes on quite a different appearance. Now there we go, we can see the storks quite nicely and can appreciate those facial features and colors they have there. And the reds and the blues there, it really sticks out a bit. Just something nice to admire. You could quite clearly earlier see how the Aberdeen stork does look big, but compared to the marabou stork, it is quite a smaller stork species. It's always nice when you've got those different comparisons in the field to get an idea of how big an animal is. Some very nice and interesting questions popping in today on the show. James Hotham was mentioning or asking, aside from baboons, do we ever get monkeys or great apes at those waterholes? So we do often get monkeys, generally vervet monkeys. Lentor tends to have monkeys sometimes, but at the same time all your waterholes actually have quite a good potential for monkeys. It just depends on the setup of the waterhole. I think they feel a bit vulnerable being in the open, so they tend to prefer the waterholes with a bit of tree cover. As far as great apes go, not to my knowledge, I don't think there's a waterhole really with great apes. I know in parts of East Africa, and I'm not too sharp on my great apes, but there are locations where chimpanzees, aside from living in forested habitats, also inhabit savanna type habitats. So maybe in those areas you would maybe see an ape, but I don't think there's any cameras really in those areas like that. I'll definitely do a bit of reading, but I don't think there's necessarily any waterholes that have apes around them. Another question from Spaz asking, do we see elephants also here at the hide? I have not seen elephants here myself, but there are most definitely elephants in Wangi National Park. You can see a few droppings in the background there, a bit old, but I think it's just one of those luck things. I'm actually surprised we haven't really seen elephants here before, but they're almost definitely around. There is quite a large elephant population in Wangi. I see we've got a very beautiful bushbuck ram grazing on the new grass growth around the waterhole here. So a very interesting question that came through. Someone, or Ivan, was asking, how did the name giraffe originate? So that's quite interesting, and I will admit I did a bit of reading up on it, because obviously it ties in quite a bit with history. But the name ultimately comes from the Arabic words of zarafa, which roughly translated into English means fast walker, or one who walks swiftly. and early travelers and scholars in the Arab world used this term, and then of course over the course of history and time, it went from Arabic more into Italian, well, medieval Italian, excuse me, and that came out a bit as giraffe, and then it also passed on from there into a bit of more French dialect and came out as giraffe, as we know, and then finally the English also incorporated it into their language and gave us the modern name giraffe. The only difference between it and French and English was there was another F added to the spelling, but interesting nonetheless. It also really paints a picture of how different animal distribution was in the medieval times, that giraffes would have been so plentiful in the Middle East, etc. And today I don't think there are, if any, giraffes really in that part of the world.
Would you like to know what an elephant's favorite food is? You could ask me questions like that in real time. Our safaris are live and interactive from the heart of Africa. Over here. Watch Safari Live and connect with nature.
The bush, full of beauty, wonder, and absolute chaos. And now, all that madness has its own show. It's called a Wild Bush Week. The countdown of the most outrageous, heart-stopping, and sometimes downright ridiculous wildlife moments of the week. Lions throwing their weight around. Hyenas gate-crashing the buffet. Leopards doing, well, leopardy things. Each week, it's a fresh reel of safari gold, a mix of drama,
She's just got to Impala, everybody.
danger, and a healthy dose of laughter. So, if you fancy a highlight show with bite, and I don't mean just the animals, tune in to a Wild Bush Week. You bring the tea, and we'll bring the tusks, tails, and teeth.
Is technically prides and coalitions. The females tend to stick together, the males will stick together, and the only times they'll really come together is to mate. They won't hunt together, they won't really feed together. The males will catch their own food, and the females will also catch their own food. But yeah, it just speaks to the different habitats and the different prey available that it causes these different changes. It's very intricate and interesting. I think we've enjoyed our time with the storks. We'll probably pop back here a bit later, but we're going to go mosey on elsewhere and see what else is waiting for us. Wow, that's quite a sight on a Sunday. All these beautiful carmine bee-eaters nesting in the banks here at Timber Plains. There is certainly a lot of activity. It's quite a sight too when you find one of these nesting sites of the bee-eaters. Just so much activity and explosion and movement of colors the whole time. It's very pretty. There was a question from Solly asking, do nocturnal primates like galagos, which is another term for bush babies, whisper in ultrasonic frequencies to evade predators? Now, I'm not entirely sure on that. I know there's been a bit of research on it, but I don't think it's too definite, and me myself not being a bush baby or nocturnal primate specialist, from my experience, every time I've bumped into bush babies when they tend to use those very high-pitched noises, etc., it's as if they're warning of a predator. I once saw a bush baby alarm calling at a house cat in a garden, and it's almost as if it's trying to warn other bush babies in the area. I think as far as avoidance goes, or predator avoidance, I think they rely much more on their agility and stealth, coupled with their extremely good hearing and eyesight. That's what they rely on. On top of that, also, if you look at how bush babies operate, they are active at night, and that's twofold, obviously to hunt insects, but also certain predators are maybe not as active, so it does give them a bit of an advantage. Of course, they still have to contend with some cats and owls, but yeah, so I think that's more they avoid their predators. Geez, it's hard to almost track or keep track of where each bee-eater is going, and this looks like a state of continuous movement in and out and hovering, etc. And then they quickly disappear in and out of the holes. I think it's testament definitely to their grace and agility to come in like that and disappear into the nesting cavities there in the riverbank. And birds certainly never fail to amaze, that's for sure. Riley, you'd like to know, are colourful birds more evolved or developed compared to duller coloured birds? Riley, I think it depends on a number of factors, but I don't think necessarily. I think each bird is obviously well developed and specialized for its certain niche. The bee-eaters may be very colorful, etc., but they're not necessarily ground-dwelling birds. They spend a lot of time flying, and colors are used for a number of things, attracting a mate, etc., where there are a lot of dull-colored birds like pipits or larks, or quails even for that matter. And if you look at their habitat setup where they live on the ground, etc., and they nest on the ground, they need to be very camouflaged to avoid predators, and even when it comes to nesting on the ground, etc. So I don't think color alone is a very good indicator of sophistication or complexity. I think it suits the needs. Some birds also have very boring bird calls, where others are very complex and can even mimic others. And we often think of just parrots as being able to mimic, but there's a lot of other birds out there that are capable of mimicking calls. So I think at the end of the day, it comes down more to what suits their lifestyle and increases their survivability in the wild. Anita, you were asking where is Timber Plains located in Zim. I'm not 100% sure myself. I believe it's obviously on the Zambezi River. I'm just not sure. I think it's quite close to Mana Pools. I'm not 100% sure if it's upstream or downstream. I'm of the opinion it's downstream of Mana Pools, but I'll double check my sources, but that's how I have it. Certainly had quite a busy Sunday session so far. I was fearing it might be a little quiet with cold weather, or cool and wet weather, let me say that, throughout the southern part of the continent. I thought things might be a bit quiet, but it's maybe not as I had feared. These bee eaters have certainly found themselves some very prime beachfront real estate. They've got water right on their doorstep. I saw one or two flying down for a sip, and obviously also incredibly good predator avoidance with the location of their nests. That's number one important factor, but I'm sure the view from there is quite amazing for them. At least we derive quite a bit of pleasure from watching their antics over here. You can see there's definitely been some flood damage over the years. Some of these large trees have fallen from the riverbank, but at the same time it's these type of floods that carve out nesting sites for the bee eaters. I see we've also got quite a few big crocodiles hanging around on the island. And last weekend, this was where we saw last Sunday, where we saw the purple heron catch that large fish, and the crocodiles tried to steal it from it, but the heron was able to succeed there. Recycled teenager with a question asking, at what age does a baby elephant stop suckling from its mother and the nourishment she gives it? So it's not necessarily an abrupt process. It's a slow process as they grow and become less reliant on milk. Obviously when they're just born, they're completely reliant on milk, and from the age of about 6 to 12 months they already start to eat a little bit of vegetation, but obviously still quite reliant on milk. And at 2 to 3 years old, I would say, was when the weaning process starts to really increase, and they become a lot less reliant on milk and start eating vegetation. But it's only from about 4 to 5 years in age that they are weaned essentially, and that they no longer drink. Sounds crazy, but yeah, that's kind of how long it takes. And I have seen it myself sometimes also with quite large calves still suckling, but at the same time, if you look at the elephant's lifespan, 4 to 5 years is actually not that long. I must say these crocodiles are certainly having a very peaceful and lazy Sunday. I think crocodiles generally have very peaceful and lazy days most of the time, however. I must say, watching these bee-eaters and crocodiles on the banks of the Zambezi is certainly getting me excited for the festive season. I can see myself in a camping chair, a very peaceful location, reading a good book, watching nature go by. But we're nearly there, so lots to look forward to. Ben, you're asking, why do impalas form such large herds? It's quite simple, or straightforward. So when you tend to be on everything's menu and everything makes a snack of you, I mean, if we look at impalas, lions eat them, hyenas eat them, leopards eat them, cheetahs eat them, crocodiles, pythons, jackals will even harass them, wild dogs. So yeah, impala, unfortunately, the base food item in the food pyramid. So if we compare them maybe to larger animals in their habitat or animals of their size, the best bet is trying to avoid thick vegetation so you can see danger coming, but that's not always possible. But at the same time, if you have quite a large herd, the safety in numbers rule starts to apply, so the odds are better that you won't get caught and someone else may get caught, or in the confusion of being in a herd, no one might get caught. But yeah, already just the odds there are better. And with all those extra ears and eyes, of course, the senses are much more heightened. So they, instead of one relying on one pair of eyes to pick up or see something, there's a whole bunch that could maybe pick it up, or hear a twig snap, or hear or smell something that's maybe changed. So yeah, it just goes back to the good old rule of safety in numbers. Whereas if you maybe compare it to your smaller antelope like duikers or bushbuck, which are solitary, they rely on just being much more stealthily and not moving around too much or exposing themselves, and that's how they stay out of harm's way. Quite mesmerizing watching all these bee-eaters coming and going. It's truly this very pretty. I especially love all the crimson coloration that you see buzzing about. I must say there are some great questions and comments flowing through today. I'm glad to see everyone is thinking and bubbling with enthusiasm about the bush. There was one question that popped in asking, do crocodiles attack baby hippos? That is most definitely a likelihood. Crocodiles will definitely take the opportunity to snack on a baby hippo. Obviously it depends on the size, but newly born young hippo calves are definitely on a crocodile's menu. Of course the crocodile needs to be quite large, but if you think about it, the size of a baby baby hippo, is about the size of from a large or a warthog up to an impala or so, and that's definitely within the crocodile's menu range. Of course, it just needs to watch out for the very defensive mother. So I don't think it happens too often, but it's not to say they won't make use of the opportunity. But a very interesting question, and I think it's quite a complex one, and it's just my opinion on the topic. I'm definitely not a specialist or speaking off of first-hand experience. But Bush Guy was asking, why are African wild dogs thriving in Kruger compared to elsewhere in Africa? What's working in the Kruger that others could possibly copy? So I think what helps a lot in the Kruger's a very large reserve. I mean, it's as big as some countries in Europe. So that massive amount of wild space is imperative to wild dogs, which have incredibly large human ranges. So that just massively already reduces the risk of human conflict, snaring, all kinds of things. On top of that, the Kruger has got quite a relatively effective boundary, and I'd say all the mortalities and injuries that take place to wild dogs tend to actually happen when they venture outside of Kruger, which is I think reduced quite greatly. There's a lot of research taking place and monitoring to watch wild dogs' movements and try promote their safety if they do leave the park or getting them back into the park. But I think that helps massively. And then if you look at the prey population makeup of the Kruger, there's a very large impala population, so that really sustains them and keeps them going, and that itself will also keep them in the park more than them wanting to leave the area. So I think those help greatly. And Kruger's done a very good job of increasing the size of it with a bit of landscape connectivity. Neighboring reserves have opened up to the Kruger. It's become a bigger reserve. There's been quite a bit of a reduction or creating buffers in a way, like I said, monitoring or improving relationships in their communities that maybe border the reserves. There's a lot of and I'm sorry, these things I'm mentioning I think are what others can control, but anti-snaring programs, I've taken part in a few snaring programs, but the Kruger does a lot of snare removal, etc. So that goes a long way in reducing mortality. And then just a few other ones. Prey restoration, like I said, the Kruger's got a very healthy prey population, so that keeps them going. And domestic dogs, obviously the rabies disease is quite detrimental to dogs, so that's also something, if they come into contact with that can decimate populations. And at the end of the day, active monitoring and conservation goes a long way. EWT has done an incredible job of investing resources and time into looking after wild dogs. So I think those are a few things that have gone well in Kruger and others could maybe look at incorporating. But that being said, there are decent wild dog populations in Zimbabwe and Botswana, so it is starting to improve. But anyway, sorry for that long-winded discussion. We're gonna move back over to Aldonio. Oh, we even got a small elephant, or I didn't say small, sorry, a young elephant coming to have a drink. We can see actually now here at Aldonio that the waterhole is slowly trickling water in again. I don't recall seeing that earlier this morning, so I think there must have just maybe been some maintenance on the waterhole and it's now pumping water. It could have been maintenance on the waterhole, the pump, something could have gone skew there. But I'm sure the waterhole will gradually fill up now. it is important to note when it's an artificial waterhole like this, it is important that they are looked after, because they don't normally dry up ever. It can be a build-up of illnesses or algae, etc. It was a couple of years ago in Botswana, there was waterholes. They weren't artificial, but there was fungal or algal build-ups that actually released toxins into the water, and quite a few elephants died. So it could have also been that they maybe just cleaned and maintained the waterhole a bit. I do the same at my house. I clean my bird baths out regularly to reduce any infections, or making sure the birds are healthy and safe, that I'm not being detrimental to them. I'm pretty sure if this elephant drank for too long, he could quite easily drain the waterhole out at the moment. I don't think there's too much water, but you can actually see him sticking his trunk now in there by the water inlet, getting to the fresh water that's being pumped in. But I'm sure he's not in too much of a rush, so he'll just slowly sip the Sunday afternoon away. Dex, you were asking what are the best chances to see a pangolin in the Kruger. I can truthfully say I don't actually have a very good idea at all. I know it is dependent on their prey distribution, etc. But I myself have never come across a pangolin. I have seen ones that have been rescued from the poaching trade that were being rehabilitated. Quite special and sad at the same time, but yeah, I've never seen a pangolin in the wild. They are such secretive and elusive creatures. I'm looking forward to the day that I maybe get to see one, but I think no matter where you go, they are incredibly threatened and elusive at the same time, so it's not an easy animal to begin looking for. And even then, I think one should be very responsible how you share that information. You don't want to be of detriment to them. Dark Caliber asking, do elephants go, or old elephant males go with the rest of the herd? No, not normally. They do their own thing. Male elephants will sometimes form small herds of their own, a bit of a bachelor group essentially. It's generally made up of quite an older male with some younger bulls, and they learn the tricks and trades of the African bush with him. But the only time you will see male elephants associating with female herds is when they're in must and they are looking to mate, but otherwise they are solitary creatures. I must say this chap is looking incredibly peaceful today. He's not too worried about anything going on, just enjoying his peaceful sip at the waterhole.
Let's go and take a look. See you out there.
Even a hyena coming into the action as well now. Oh my word! She's stalking the hyena now. Leopard, hyena, lion, all together in one shot. Oh! Woo! This is action-packed.
Would you like to know at what age a buffalo calf gets its horns? These are questions that you can ask me in real time. Our safaris are live and interactive here in the heart of Africa. Join me on Safari Live and connect with nature.
Oh, she's gonna catch it.
Come on, Tommy!
Watch this, we're about to see a kill.
You can see how close he is from where I am.
If you love watching Wild Earth, here's a little tip. Become a member. You can gain access to the channel ad-free, you can rewind and re-watch sightings, and you can join our Tuesday live safaris. There's also behind the scenes videos, fireside chats, and every Safari Live episode, whenever you want it. It's just a better way to stay connected to nature.
Have your first safari, there's no going back. After that you are well and truly addicted, and the only cure for it is to keep doing more safaris, feed the addiction. Julian Branscombe saying, you wish you knew what bird was doing a deep musical fruity. I'm not going to even try pew poop. Maybe I got it a bit right there. Every now and again here at Aldonio, I'll listen a bit carefully, maybe I can pick up on it. I'll be the first to admit one tends to be very sharp on the bird calls in the immediate area. It's almost like learning a new language when you go to a new area. You have to kind of get to grips with maybe the slight dialect changes in certain species, and also just some of the different species altogether. I'll listen a bit more carefully, maybe I can hear it. must say, now that this bull is moving a bit, I'm actually a bit suspicious that he's maybe in must. I see there's the back of his legs are quite wet on the inside, which is what happens when they're in must. They dribble urine continuously and it drips onto their legs. It's a good way to tell if an elephant bull is in must. I do think this fellow could be in must. He seems very calm and unbothered, but it's a possibility he could be in must, because I don't think he's been splashing around in the water at all. I'm going to pop over to Rosie's pan now and leave this fellow to keep drinking. That's quite a stunning start for the stint here at Rosie's pan. Nice elegant fish eagle, looking maybe a little wet and fluffed up from the rain that we've been experiencing today, but looking very striking nonetheless. You can see the wind is also blowing quite strongly, but I think that's also what is bringing the majority of the rain to the area. Nonetheless, our fish eagle has had a good shower, I can promise you that. Dex, you're asking if elephants knew there was very little water, would they waste it? Dex, I think that's just the thing in general. Elephants don't necessarily know that as we do in human terms. We understand different water cycles, that there's water deep underground, that we can pump it and store it, and elephants don't see it in that way. They know that there's water in different areas, and if one of their water sources dries up, they'll just go to a different location to find water. But they don't see it in the way of wasting or conserving it. They are well aware of the fact that waterholes naturally dry up. So in their minds they've got a whole map of different spots, and if one is dry they'll just move on to the next. At the same time, I think they also have a memory of which waterholes don't really dry up. But I don't think they look at it in such a way of conserving or looking after it carefully. For them it's all about survival, and they need water now. That's what's more important. If it's not there tomorrow, they'll make a plan. James Hotham, you were saying if you were a teenager now, you totally want to study towards being a guide / working in the bush. I do agree. I think if I look back, I would have loved to have done that, but I went down a bit of a different career path for maybe job stability. But I still followed my passions and stuck to something that tied me to nature. So there's always a way to make it work. But at the same time, remember, it's never too late to start working in the bush or being a guide. There's plenty of people that have done career changes late into their lives and followed their dreams, and I think that's the most important thing. Zed asking if I have a favorite bird. The fish eagle is one of your favorite birds. Ooh, it's always a very tough one. I think I might be very typical here, or not too exciting, but my one of my four, I'm going to narrow it down to two birds, because I've specifically got t-shirts representing them. But it is the white-crested helmet shrike, which we don't often see on the cameras, I don't know if we actually have seen them, and the fork-tailed drongo. What I love about the fork-tailed drongo is its ability to mimic different calls, and it uses this talent for mobbing or scaring other birds, or for even sometimes mammals. So it will impersonate maybe the call of an owl or an alarm call, and animals or birds or foraging mongooses or meerkats will scatter and leave their prey behind, and the sneaky drongo will come and steal it. At the same time, the drongos are very defensive and aggressive. They'll chase off eagles. So I would say the drongo is probably one of my most favorite and entertaining birds. I do also always enjoy walking around in my fork-tailed drongo t-shirt. It's made by a local ornithologist who's made a few bird guides and written bird books, Fancy Peacock. So yeah, if you're looking for any African bird t-shirts, have a look at the Fancy Peacock 5-inch store. But I do love those t-shirts. Wildlife lady mentioning or speaking about, aside from the eagle looking so stunning, but their wonderful call. Yeah, I do think that is one of, I wouldn't say infamous, but well-known bird calls of Africa, and it really, I don't know, that's also one of those calls that conjures that safari feeling, I think, especially when you're near a large lake or river. Hearing that call and seeing them glide past is certainly beautiful. It is a nice call to hear. And then of course the most exciting is if you actually see them catch a fish. It's amazing to see how stable this fish eagle is in the tree. You can see how much the branches and leaves behind it are swaying in the wind. I think it's just a testament a bit to the strength of the eagle and how secure it is on its perch there. Doesn't seem to be moving too much in the wind. But I think they have to be. When a storm comes, it's not like they can really hide anywhere. They just have to weather the storm and get through it. But I can only imagine the force and strength of those talons if you think of how they clasp onto fish and grab them out the water. It's quite a bit of force that they can generate. Natalie H asking if this is a juvenile fish eagle. Natalie, I think I'd almost go with sub-adult. It's pretty much got its coloration. When they're juveniles or immatures, they look quite different. I'm not sure if the wind is maybe just ruffling its feathers a bit that we see this a bit of different coloration, but I do think it's maybe just a bit of a sub-adult, young adult animal that's nearly completely got its full coloration. Well, we're going to leave our elegant fish eagle and we're going over to King's Camp now. There we go. We've got some elephants coming down for a drink. I imagine they are not having a pool party today. I'm sure they are cool and wet enough already. I think this is purely just for something to drink. You can actually quite clearly see how well soaked they are from the showers that have taken place today. But I'm sure it's quite a relief for them to not feel the heat for once. It's been a couple of warm days the last 2 days in the area. Stephanie Groenewald, you were mentioning that a fish eagle and a woodland kingfisher is your favorite. Those are also two very good choices, considering the woodland kingfishers have basically just arrived back. I've seen a few people have been seeing them in the Kruger National Park, and I briefly heard one yesterday, so they are back. I'm looking forward to seeing one properly, but it is exciting to know that they are back. I think that is the defining bird of the summer season when they finally return to South Africa to breed and make the most of the summer times. You were also asking what's the name of the shop. It's called Firefinch. You can just Google that and you should find it. But I do assume quite a few people are inspired by the fish eagle. I see the comments are alive with it. Anyway, our elephants have unfortunately given us the slip behind that bush. We're gonna pop on back to Aldonio. Our bull is still here, being very patient, just taking it easy. He's definitely not in a rush on a Sunday. I do envy him, but I maybe feel the same. Not very keen for the start of the week again. There's a intricate question from Abe Abon asking what is the height and wing spread of the fish eagle. So I just I pulled up my bird guide on that one. It's technical measurements, but roughly about 63 to 73 centimeters is their height or length, and they have a wingspan of 1.9 meters. So quite a big eagle, not the biggest, but they are definitely by no means small. Wildlife lady mentioning watching elephants is one of her favorites. I always do think they're one of the more entertaining animals to watch at a waterhole. And I mean, obviously such a big animal, they're very noticeable, but if you take careful attention to the smaller things they do with their trunks or some of their smaller behavioral cues, it's very interesting to watch them just going on with their day. I mean, we can see this bull is not exactly super thirsty. He's just slowly spending his time here. I would assume he's probably listening out for females in the area. I'm under the suspicion that he's possibly a must, so probably would find that he is maybe listening for subsonic or high frequency contact calls in the area, figuring out his next moves, or he's possibly waiting for some female elephants to approach. Not that I've actually ever seen a breeding herd of elephant cows at El Doño, but of course they will definitely be in the area. Few questions coming in about our one-tusked elephant. So obviously the one that's broken will continue to grow. It's just gonna all grow at its normal rate, but the one that is unbroken will inadvertently become longer. It is quite a slow process, but it's interesting to see. I mean, elephants live for about 65 years. So even after breaking a tusk, how they can still grow quite large tusks during the rest of their lifetime, and still become tuskers. Actually, I have seen a few pictures of elephant bulls that broke their tusks when they were quite young, and their tusks grow quite big. Maybe they learn to be more careful the second time. I do see this elephant bull is splashing himself a bit, so he might not be in must after all, but when we were watching him the first time, I have my suspicions. Well, I'm going to leave this gentle guy to carry on. I'm going to pop on back over to the hide. That's quite a nice sighting on a Sunday. Quite a large Nile monitor lizard. I think the definition of the bush enthusiast, opportunist. Always looking for something to eat, and I'll go for anything: eggs, rodents, amphibians, other lizards, birds. Especially on the egg front, they'll eat crocodile eggs, bird eggs, almost anything they can get down their mouths. And they're also quite good at defending themselves. They've got incredibly sharp claws, so picking one up is at your own peril. And they can also swing their tail around quite a bit, that it's almost like a whip. I've never been hit by it, but I can only imagine that it would be quite painful. Off he goes down there, slipping into the water. Ooh, he disappeared very quickly. Water monitors are incredibly adept swimmers, so they're actually very at home around water. Stephanie Groenewald, you were asking where is King's Camp. So King's Camp is in the Greater Kruger. I haven't been there myself, but I must just get my facts straight. It's either Kleseri or Timbavati. I must double check myself, but yeah, it's more in the central region of the Kruger, but in the greater Kruger. See, there's quite a few nice comments coming in about everyone's different favorite birds. One that stands out is from Roz and George from the Garden Route, speaking about how much he enjoys the humble and soft colored dove. And you don't need to always be flashy to be appreciated. That is true. I think there's a certain peace and calmness one gets from observing doves. They go about their day-to-day activities with a lot of calmness and peacefulness. They can be a bit entertaining when they chase each other around as bird feeders. But also not an easy life being a dove. A lot of things want to eat you. Got a nice grey heron patrolling the shallows here, looking for a meal to eat. If I've learnt anything from last week, is that we should carefully watch the heron. He may catch a fish. So we've also got a few cattle egrets poking their heads out there, probably feeding on insects and small amphibians in the shallows, but most likely mainly insects. I can imagine with the rains the last while there's been quite an explosion of insect life. And quite often in agriculture you'll see cattle egrets running after plows or large scale mowers catching insects that are disturbed, just as you'll see them following elephants or buffaloes through lush grassy areas. They'll capitalize on any insects that are fleeing or disturbed. Alright, we're going to go back over to Aldonio. Oh. Now, we've got a nice visit from a giraffe here. And a few oxpeckers hiding out in his mane. Also got quite a view from there.
What does it take to handle the wild? Balance. Determination. Focus.
Yaku!
And gear that can take a beating so you don't have to.
My full name is Cedric Leslie Dold. I grew up mostly here in the Lowveld. I grew up here pretty much on the southern side of Kruger National Park, a place called Marloth Park, for most of my years. Something surprising about myself, I did play drums in a band for many years. Best sighting I presented, we found Palumba and the two cubs, and the cubs are just way big.
Ah, the bush, full of beauty, wonder, and absolute chaos. And now, all that madness has its own show. It's called a Wild Bush Week. The countdown of the most outrageous, heart-stopping, and sometimes downright ridiculous wildlife moments of the week. Lions throwing their weight around. Hyenas gate-crashing the buffet. Leopards doing, well, leopardy things. Each week, it's a fresh reel of safari gold. a mix of drama,
She's just got an impala, everybody.
danger, and a healthy dose of laughter. So, if you fancy a highlight show with bite, and I don't mean just the animals, tune in to a Wild Bush Week. You bring the tea, and we'll bring the tusks, tails, and teeth.
Gary, I'm glad to hear you're enjoying the show. It truly is a privilege to be able to enjoy all these reserves. If we think about in the developed world we live in today, these are certainly some of the positives of technology. I think people a couple of years ago only were able to experience a fraction of the wildlife across the world. And getting to see these locations is a big motivator for trying to get to them, or what you can expect on those areas. Certainly a driving factor for me. I've enjoyed visiting some of the locations that I've seen on Africam throughout the years. But it also sounds like you've got quite a spread of drongos that come to your house for food, as well as some of the Cape sugarbirds. We don't really get sugarbirds here. We've got sunbirds, but just as pretty. I do certainly live for my indigenous garden and all the wildlife it attracts. I like to think of it as my small game reserve. I think that's one cool thing that's also become quite popular over time, is indigenous gardening throughout the globe. I think there's a big push to make gardens, in a way, wildlife refuges in urban environments. It's very important. And we're seeing a decrease in the amount of manicured and pampered lawns throughout the world, and more focus on indigenous plants that are better for the environment. My lawn generally gets mowed down by the native warthogs, so I don't worry too much about it, but I'm also glad it feeds and sustains them. You can see these two young giraffe bulls getting a bit boisterous with each other. I think we might see a bit of a necking fight. No, it doesn't look like it. I think the one is not keen to get boisterous today. He wants a peaceful Sunday. Melanistic marble, I do agree, it was quite... I don't recall seeing an elephant for quite a while at Donio. I think it's obviously to do with the rains in the area. Animals will start to disperse and not congregate as much as they were during the drier times. But it is nice to see an ellie. Amazing how quickly the scene can change. That ellie was there for quite a while, and then all of a sudden all these giraffes popped up. They are looking quite stunning, surrounded by that green foliage, really popping with their spots and coloration. Well, we're going to leave our giraffes to keep a lookout. We're going over to Founders now. We've got some nice blesbok that we're having a drink. In my opinion, the clowns of the bushveld are always shaking their head at everything. Often considered by a few naturalists not that they're not necessarily the most sharpest of the antelope world. Some private game farms tend to stock their properties with blesbok as a bit of a buffer that some of the other antelope are a bit spared from predation of cheetahs, leopards and lions, because blesbok are quite plentiful and successful breeders. So also very docile animals. You can actually, a lot of properties are able to keep them in with a cattle fence. You don't need a very tall fence to keep them in. Still nonetheless very pretty and beautiful animals. They always just make me laugh quite a bit, the way they always shake their heads. I'm looking quite forward to possibly maybe next year seeing the bontebok. Looks very similar to the blesbok, but it's a much more rare, and it was almost extinct in South Africa, but their numbers are rebounding. Well, that was the last of our blesbok there. We're going to pop on over to Tau Lodge. Bit of a quieter scene here today at Tau. It's looking quite quiet. I see there's a few impala grazing out on the open area there, and a single waterbuck. Looks like a waterbuck bull just resting. Oh, there's a crocodile. They're always also good at hiding here at Tau. You can see them there, partially submerged in the grass and water. I suppose you'd like to know what is the biggest number of giraffes I have seen, and which places in Africa have the biggest giraffe density, in which country specifically. I think I've seen about 20 or so together. It just depends, sometimes they're a bit more spread out, but yeah, I'd say probably about 20 or so. Look, that number could easily go up. They are a bit gregarious. They don't have very specific set herd structures like other antelopes, not that giraffes are antelopes. But yeah, I would say South Africa has been very successful. I know giraffe populations and different species in other parts of Africa are facing what they call a bit of a silent extinction. No one's really aware of it. They're just slowly and steadily declining. But in South Africa, due to the success of I would call it the game ranching industry, and a lot of privately owned conservation areas, giraffe numbers are quite stable in South Africa, so they're quite well protected. Most properties are fenced, so that keeps them out of harm's way. But yeah, Southern Africa's got quite a strong, and I mean, I say South Africa's got one, but I also do think other areas in Southern Africa have also got quite large and stable giraffe populations. But South Africa alone has a very big giraffe population. I know we don't always see them on the webcams, but there is a lot of giraffes. That crocodile is also looking very peaceful on its Sunday afternoon snooze. Doesn't look too cold at Tau. I would have actually been expecting a bit more rain. I know when I looked at the weather forecast this weekend, there was a lot of rain forecasted for this region of the country. It might have just moved on since Saturday. Oh, there's a black crake that's popped out of the grass there. It's looking intently at that crocodile, but I don't think it's too worried in general. Black crakes are certainly one of the one of the less shy crake species that one sees in South Africa. Unfortunately, all the other types of crakes are incredibly shy and rare, but it is always very exciting when you get to see one of the different species. Often gets me to slam on brakes, and that's also what I love so much about this time of year. A lot of the crakes are going to start coming back with the rainy weather, and as the wetland areas fill up with water again and grass growth takes place, and a lot of rare birds to look for again. Spaz, with quite a long question, but asking if I've ever been to the northwest province of South Africa. I have been a couple of times, for a number of different reasons, and to a few reserves. I've never been to Madikwe, but I've been very close by. And mentioning how much it rains here at Tau, it looks like a dry area similar to the Kalahari in Botswana. So yeah, this type of bush here at Tau is reminiscent of the Kalahari. It is a very dry area. Obviously the waterhole maybe gives a bit of a different perception. There's a bit of a man-made constructed wetland area, but it is a very dry part of the country, and is actually considered Kalahari bush in its biome type. I've spent a bit more time in the Pilanesberg National Park, which is quite close to Madikwe, and we've also gone to Kwamaratane a few times on the show, which makes it unique. With it's almost a transition zone of this Kalahari bush and the more normal bush in the eastern half of the country. But we're just going to pop on over to Olifant. There's not too much going on at Tau now. It's quite quiet. But just along on that topic still, I wouldn't say there's anything too unique animal-wise. Birding-wise, there's a lot more unique in the Madikwe Kalahari zone, like in Botswana. There's a few more drier species. The only animals that would truly be unique to that half of southern Africa would be your springbuck and your gemsbuck or oryx. The rest are quite widespread. I think cheetahs and stuff like that might also be a bit more common. We've got a very comfortable crocodile in the Olifants River today. I would have thought it would maybe be out of the water. It's possibly a bit chilly, but at the same time the water temperature might be roughly the same as what it is outside, so it makes no difference. I'm sure it's hoping for an unsuspecting fish to come swimming by that it can quickly snap up and get a bit of a Sunday lunch for itself going. BBC, you're asking if there's been any indication of the crocodiles at Tau laying eggs. I myself haven't seen anything. The last couple of times I have been at Tau, I haven't actually really noticed the crocodiles, or they've been very quiet, so I'm also not too familiar of the rest of the setup around the waterhole there, just with the way the camera is positioned at the lodge. So it is possible that they've maybe laid eggs. I will see if I can do some digging or find out from anyone. But maybe since they've been quiet, they might actually be near their nests. But I think that that soil there is obviously quite challenging to dig a nest in. So certainly would be an interesting circumstance. So amazing to see how well camouflaged this crocodile is here on the Olifants River. Very typical of their hunting style. We can see how it's near the shallow water, but it's right at the drop off into deeper water, and that just completely favors it so well for ambushing any animals that maybe approach, or possibly any fish. But it can quietly just slide backwards into the deeper water and reposition itself for a good ambush. And that's why you have to be so careful of water bodies where crocodiles are present. They can be hiding anywhere. You really have to stick to very shallow water. Anywhere deeper, there's more than likely a crocodile waiting. Testament to years of evolution to hone their hunting skills and make them the successful predators they are. Looking very much at ease though, not looking too bothered. But I think crocodiles would probably be one of the least bothered animals in the world. They can make themselves disappear in the blink of an eye. Probably one of the more interesting questions today from Mochwiti: does water monitor meat taste like crocodile meat? I can honestly say I don't know. I would maybe fathom a guess and say that age-old thing, it maybe tastes like chicken. I have once sampled crocodile meat on my travels. And just putting it out there that crocodiles are actually farmed in southern Africa. So no one is capturing wild crocodiles and harming them, but it is actually also a farmed animal in southern Africa, and quite a successful industry. So I have tried crocodile meat. It does actually taste a bit like chicken, but certainly different. The first time I tried it I wasn't very fond of it, and the second time I tried it was in a bit more of a, I'd say, more higher cuisine dish, which made it taste quite nice, and I enjoyed that a bit more. But certainly one of the weirder things out there. But I always say you've got to try things before you develop an opinion on them. I'm just totally blown away by how well camouflaged this crocodile is. It blends so perfectly into the sand and that darker shade there. I mean, if it wasn't for this bird's eye view or high up view we have of this crocodile, I think you would be hard pressed to notice it, because it would, if it saw you coming, it would quite sneakily just disappear. And I think one would think it's maybe just a ripple of a fish. Meanwhile, it's something quite dangerous. Dark Caliber, you're asking how long can a crocodile stay in one position. I'm assuming you mean in two ways. Physically staying in one position, that, I don't know, I think they could stay easily 6 to 8 hours in one spot without moving. That's just part and parcel to their hunting strategy. They're very good at conserving energy, and obviously they're just lying somewhere doing nothing. It's not really an issue for them. As far as holding their breath, it's about 15 to 30 minutes. If they lie really still and not move at all, they can hold their breath for up to an hour in some circumstances. But yeah, they can lie incredibly still for very long, and that's what makes them become undetectable eventually. Can hear some wonderful bird calls here at Olifants. We can also see the rain starting a little bit again. But I definitely hear red-chested cuckoo calling. Piet my vrou, as they say in South Africa, or Afrikaans, that's what we call it. Also hear a few bee-eaters. But I must say there's no more peaceful spot than along a big river in the Kruger region. That is one of my favorite places to be. Funny, that crocodile looks a lot smaller when we're zoomed into it, and when you zoom out, it does certainly appear to be a sizable crocodile. But it is tough when you don't have too much scale to also compare. But I would say this crocodile's on the good side of 2.5 meters, 3 meters maybe. Certainly big enough to do some proper damage. Melanistic marble, you were asking if that was a chin spot batters we keep hearing. I didn't hear the chin spot batters. I'll listen a bit more carefully. Their call sounds a bit like three blind mice, but a bit more of a whistling tune. There was definitely a red-chested cuckoo, so I don't know if that was maybe what you were hearing. Kind of the same tonal rhythm. But yeah, I think I don't hear a batters myself. Gareth, certainly so. It is scary to imagine or I would call it crocodile, the barrel of danger, but how they can look so quiet or still, and how incredibly fast they can move, and how dangerous they are. Certainly animals to be approached with a lot of respect and care. I think most people that underestimate them genuinely end up as a meal. But yeah, very successful and well adapted animals. Another question coming in asking if crocodiles have alarm calls. So crocodiles are largely silent. They can pretty much just grumble or rumble and hiss. So that's how they would essentially express their displeasure if you were harassing or bothering them. They'll hiss quite loudly at you, and they can grumble a bit. See, we've got quite a large wader or water bird there to the right of the crocodile. I just saw it moving now. If I had to take a guess, I think it's a common green shank. It has unfortunately gone out of the frame there. At the same time though, your waders are quite difficult to identify. You need to take notice of a lot of fine details. But if I just look at the size a bit, I'm pretty sure it's a common green shank. A lot of your other waders this time of year in the Kruger region are a fair bit smaller. And that it's making the most of the shallows there, looking for tidbits to eat on. Anyway, we're gonna leave our quiet and sneaky crocodile and going back over to Aldonio. The giraffe are in full force today in Aldonio. Actually got quite a few. I count at least 11 giraffe, and I'm sure there's possibly more than a few to the right hand side there. But that's quite a sizable herd. A few bulls and a few cows.
My name is Amy, and behind the camera with me is Paul. And I mean, to be able to share it with all of you. Fingers crossed, and I'll make sure I wear my lucky leopard socks as well.
Morning everybody, thank you so much for joining us. Wow, that was amazing everybody.
Are you ready for the adventure of a lifetime? Wild Earth Travel's newsletter is your passport to a magical journey. Explore exclusive travel options featuring special offers at stunning Wild Earth locations and all hosted by your favorite presenters. Don't miss out. Head over to our website and subscribe to the Wild Earth Travel newsletter today and stay in the know on all our unforgettable adventures. Wild Earth Travel, where Africa comes alive.
It's always interesting for me the way giraffes fight with each other. It always seems so well orchestrated or gentleman-like. It's not raw and primal. They look very graceful while they trade blows. But make no mistake, there's a lot of force involved, and it can get very rough. I've seen footage of some giraffes being knocked off of their feet. So can get very dangerous, even though it looks very slow and graceful. It's still very serious. There we go. A few necks swinging there. You can actually see this one bull approaching has got a bit of a bent or deformed, I say in inverted commas, horn. It's an ossicone. It's not really a horn like antelopes have. But that just speaks about the forces involved. If they can bend or damage bone like that, it certainly shows you how serious the fights can get for dominance. Wildlife Lady, I'm glad you've enjoyed today's Live at the Waterhole. It's a big pleasure. And yeah, of course, thanks to everyone else behind the scenes that makes all of this possible, that we can enjoy all the African wildlife at the tip of our fingers. Ashton, you're asking how can you differentiate between a snake hiss and a crocodile hiss? I think they both sound very similar. I think you'll probably see a crocodile long before it hisses at you. If a crocodile's hissing at you and you haven't seen it yet, I would also recommend you back up a bit. But it also depends on the snakes. But yeah, I think they come across relatively similar. It depends how they force that air out. Obviously, snakes and crocodiles are not vocal animals, so it's not a specific special type of noise they're making. It's just a release of air. But yeah, I think if a snake or a crocodile hisses at you, you're far too close, and I would recommend that you make some space. But once again, today's been a great session. We've seen a lot of interesting things. I thought it was going to be a bit gloomy and rainy, but we've actually been spoiled with sightings. And a lot of the locations are really coming to life at the moment with all the rains. I hope everyone enjoyed the show thoroughly. I look forward to seeing you next time, and I hope everyone enjoys the afternoon game drive today. Hopefully it's also filled with lots of sightings. I see these two giraffes are still very intent on facing off against one another, but one appears to have lost interest. Certainly a great way to end today's show.